Hello friends, today I am here to discuss emotional intelligence, which is a very important part of interpersonal skills. As we are doing interpersonal skills, so it is very important to know the emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, a term created by two researchers, Peter Salovey and John Mayer, and popularized by Dan Goleman in his 1996 book of the same name, that is emotional intelligence. How we define emotional intelligence? It is also known as emotional quotient. So, we define emotional intelligence or EQ as the ability to recognize, understand and manage our own emotions. Recognize, understand and influence the emotions of others. In practical terms, this means being aware that emotions can drive our behavior and impact people positively and negatively, and learning how to manage those emotions, both our own and others, especially when we are under pressure. When would you need to manage your emotional intelligence? That is a big question. When it is the time that you are supposed to control your emotional intelligence. Giving and receiving feedback from others, meeting tight deadlines, dealing with challenging relationships, not having enough resources, dealing with change, dealing with setbacks and failure. Why emotional intelligence training works? It requires, why? First, self-awareness. Understand the impact one has on the people around you. Very important to understand the impact of others. Neuroscience based change. Drive real behavioral change with a program rooted in neuroscience and research. Unleash the best you have to offer. Discover why your best self is your best choice. Great workplace culture. Emotions are contagious, improve relationship quality and build a culture of accountability. Exceptional leadership. People leave managers, not jobs. Exceptional leaders bring out the best in their people. It is a scientific fact that emotions precede thought. When emotions run high, they change the way our brains function, diminishing our cognitive abilities, decision-making powers, and even interpersonal skills. What is more important? IQ, that is intelligence quotient, or emotional intelligence EI? If you think IQ is more important, you might be surprised at what you will learn in this here. That is not to say that IQ is not important, but there may be some traits that are even more influential on our success. Drawing from several different sources, a simple definition of emotional intelligence describes an ability to monitor your own emotions as well as the emotions of others, to distinguish between and level different emotions correctly, and to use emotional information to guide your thinking and behavior and influence that of others. This is perhaps the most suitable definition. Emotional intelligence is what we use when we empathize with our worker, have deep conversations about our relationship with our spouse or significant other, and attempt to manage an unruly or distraught child. It allows us to connect with others, understand ourselves better, and live a more authentic, healthy, and happy life. Although there are many kinds of intelligence and they are often connected to one another, there are some very significant differences between them. When we talk of EQ versus IQ, EQ is also emotional intelligence, we need to know a few things. EQ is emotional intelligence, which, as we just learned, is all about identifying emotions in ourselves and others, relating to others, and communicating about our feelings. IQ, on the other hand, is cognitive intelligence. This is the intelligence that people are generally most familiar with, as it is the type that is most often referred to when the word intelligence is used. It is also the type that is most often measured through testing and estimated through things like grade point average. Social intelligence versus emotional intelligence, because emotional intelligence is also an integral part of our social behavior. Social intelligence is more closely related to emotional intelligence than intelligence quotient IQ is, as they both have to do with navigating social or emotional situations. However, these are two distinct types of intelligence, even if they share some similar features. Emotional intelligence is more related to the present, in that it is used to identify and manage emotions in the moment. Social intelligence uses some of the same skills and abilities, but is often focused towards the future. It is about how to understand the feelings, personalities, and behaviors of yourself and others to seek positive outcomes. What is the position of emotional intelligence in psychology? Because to great extent it is related to psychology. Emotional intelligence filled a gap in the mainstream understanding of intelligence, especially of psychologists. The field always seemed to have a general understanding that IQ, that is intelligence quotient, wasn't everything, but the theories on what exactly the other important components were varied greatly and couldn't agree on a single concept or idea. When the idea of emotional intelligence was first introduced, psychologists found that this theory fit into the field like a puzzle piece that had been missing. We probably all know people, either at work or in our personal lives, who are really good listeners. No matter what kind of situations we are in, they always seem to know just what to say and how to say it, so that we are not offended or upset. They are caring and considerate, and even if we don't find a solution to our problem, we usually leave feeling more hopeful and optimistic. We probably also know people who are masters at managing their emotions, like politicians. They don't get angry in stressful situations. Instead, they have the ability to look at a problem and calmly find a solution. This is an art, a magic. They are excellent decision makers, and they know when to trust their intuition. Regardless of their strengths, however, they are usually willing to look at themselves honestly. This is the characteristic of emotional intelligence. They take criticism well, and when they know when to use it to improve their performance. So, emotional intelligence refers to the ability to identify and manage one's own emotion, as well as the emotions of other, that is to say, to handle the situation. Though there is some disagreement among psychologists as to what constitutes true emotional intelligence, it is generally said to include at least 3 skills: emotional awareness, or the ability to identify and name one's own emotion, the ability to harness those emotions and apply them to tasks like thinking and problem solving, and the ability to manage emotions, which includes both regulating one's own emotions when necessary and cheering up or calming down other people. There is currently no validated test or scale for emotional intelligence as there is for G, the general intelligence factor, a fact that has led some critics to claim the concept is either sketchy or entirely non-existent. Despite this criticism, however, emotional intelligence or emotional quotient, as it is sometimes known, has wide appeal among the general public as well as in certain industries. In recent years, some employers have been incorporated emotion intelligence test into their application or interview process, on the theory that someone high in emotional intelligence would make a better leader or co-worker. But while some studies have found a link between emotional intelligence and job performance, others have shown no correlation, and the lack of a scientifically valid scale makes it difficult to truly measure or predict someone's emotional intelligence on the job. Being smart about feelings, that is also a part of emotional intelligence. An emotionally intelligent individual is both highly conscious of his or her own emotional states. Even negativity, frustration, sadness, isolation, loneliness, alienation, or something more subtle, and able to identify and manage them. These people are also especially tuned in to the emotions others experience. It is easy to see how a sensitivity to emotional signals from within and from the social environment could make one a better friend, parent, leader, or a romantic partner. Fortunately, these skills can be honed. There are two numbers to remember to help someone to understand what emotional intelligence is all about. What are these two numbers? In other words, you can say the framework of emotional intelligence. And these numbers are 5 and 4. What is this 5 or 4 numbers? There are 5 components of the emotional intelligence model and 4 dimensions of this model. The 5 components, elements, domain of emotional intelligence model is according to Goldman, there are 5 components. What are these 5 components? Self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, social skills. Self-awareness can be defined as the ability to recognize and understand one's own emotion. It is the foundational building block of emotional intelligence, since regulating ourselves, having empathy for others, and so rely on identifying and understanding emotion in ourselves. Self-regulation is one step further to have high EQ or EI, emotional quotient and emotional intelligence. We must not only be able to recognize our own emotions, we must also be able to appropriately express, regulate, and manage them. People who are high in emotional intelligence and EQ are generally also high in intrinsic motivation. In other words, people high in EQ or EI are motivated for internal reasons rather than to gain wealth, respect, fame, or other external rewards. Those with high emotional intelligence are motivated for their own personal reasons and work towards their own goals. Empathy can be defined as the ability to understand how other people are feeling and recognize on an intimate level how one would feel in their shoes. How one would feel in one's shoes. It does not mean you sympathize, validate, or accept their behavior, just that you can see things from their perspective and feel what they feel. Finally, social skills are the last piece of emotional quotient or emotional intelligence puzzle. These skills are what allow people to interact socially with one another and to successfully navigate social situation. Those with high EQ generally have higher than average social skills and are able to effectively pursue their goals and get the outcomes they want when interacting with others. This framework has been adapted and modeled to fit business and organizational context. In this organizational context, there are a few sub-skills and abilities under each component that contribute to higher emotional intelligence and greater success as an employee, group member, and organization member. Self-awareness and emotional awareness, recognizing one's emotions and their effects, as we discussed earlier. Accurate self-assessment, that is also knowing one's strength and limits. Leading self-confidence, sureness about one's self-worth and capabilities. Self-worth and capability, because when you could control your emotion and sentiment, your capability will go higher and higher. Self-regulation, self-control, managing disruptive emotions and impulses. Trustworthiness, which means maintaining standards of honesty and integrity, which is very important part of one's character. Consciousness, that means taking responsibility for personal performance. Adaptability, flexibility in handling change. Innovativeness, being comfortable with and open to novel ideas and new horizon to life. Well, this is the kind of framework that helps to improve emotional intelligence. As I said, adaptability, flexibility in handling the change, and also innovativeness, which is increasing new information. Self-motivation, achievement, drive, striving to improvement or meet a standard of excellence. Commitment, which means aligning with the goals of the group or organization. Initiative, readiness to act on opportunities. And optimism, that leads to persistence in pursuing goals despite obstacles and setbacks, hurdles. Empathy and social awareness means sensing others' feeling and perspective and taking an active interest in their concerns. Service orientation, which means anticipating, recognizing, and meeting customers' needs. Developing others means sensing what others need in order to develop and bolstering their abilities. Leveraging diversity leads cultivating opportunities through diverse people. Political awareness means reading a group's emotional currents and power relationships. Well, when we talk of emotional intelligence, there are certain social skills very important to know. What are these social skills? Influence, building effective tactics for persuasion. Communication, sending clear and convincing messages. Leadership, inspiring and guiding groups and people. Change catalyst, initiating or managing change. Conflict management, negotiating and resolving agreement. building bonds, nurturing instrumental relationships. Collaboration and cooperation means working with others towards shared goals. Team capability, creating group energy in pursuing collective goals. Well, these are the social skills as part of emotional intelligence and emotional quotient. The fourth dimension of emotional intelligence. According to founding fathers Salvo and Mayer, there are four distinct dimensions or branches of emotional intelligence that form a hierarchy of emotional skills and abilities. What are these? Perceiving emotions, using emotion to facilitate thought, understanding emotions, and managing emotions. I repeat once again, these four are very important: perceiving emotions, using emotions to facilitate thought, understanding emotions, managing emotions. The first dimension, that is, perceiving emotion, relates to being aware of and recognizing other people's states. State means both physical and psychological states, like being in physical pain or feeling frazzled. Identifying emotion in other people, expressing one's own emotions and needs accurately and appropriately, and distinguishing between accurate, honest feelings and inaccurate, dishonest feeling. Using emotion to facilitate thought involves redirecting and prioritizing your thinking based on the feelings associated with those thoughts, generating emotions that will facilitate better judgment and memory, capitalizing on mood changes so you can appreciate multiple points of view, and using emotional states to improve your problem solving skills and creativity. That is, using emotions to facilitate thought. Understanding emotion is the dimension of emotional intelligence that includes understanding the relationships among various emotions, perceiving the consequences of emotions, understanding complex feelings and contradictory states, and understanding the transitions among emotions. The final dimension, managing emotions, refers to being open to both pleasant and unpleasant feelings, monitoring and reflecting on your emotions, engaging, prolonging or detaching from an emotional state, and managing the emotion both within yourself and in others. Well, for a quick refresher on trait versus state, we can discuss it like a state, temporary thought, pattern, feeling, behavior that are circumstantial and highly dependent on the environment as well as the individual's personality. This is the trait emotional intelligence. Trait can be permanent or semi-permanent thought pattern, feelings, behaviors that are consistent, long-lasting and relatively stable characteristics that are much more dependent on personality than environment. Based on these descriptions, we can see the emotional intelligence generally falls on the trait side of the state trait continuum, although our emotional intelligence and our EQ, emotional quotient related skills and abilities can certainly vary based on our circumstances. For example, one could be more highly emotionally intelligent in personal relationship than in work situations or vice versa. However, emotional intelligence is most commonly considered a trait. Sticking with the trait conceptualization, well, let us move deep into the emotional intelligence or emotional quotient. My dear student, I am sure that you must have derived some of the impression that is going to help you to know the level of emotional intelligence in you and also how to develop it to cope with the situation may occur in your professional life and public life. Till then, goodbye. Thank you very much and see you in the next lecture. Thank you.